Hello, Garland Nixon here, and I just had some weird technical difficulties. My stream just died, but I'm back. We're going to talk about the implications of Yemen's missile success. Let's talk. Hello, Garland Nixon here, and I just had some really weird thing. I just tried to start the stream, and it went for like seconds, and then just like totally and completely died on me. But somehow, I think we're still making it. All right, let's talk. Um, Technical to get difficult. Oh, but you know what I always say? I always say this, man, the people over at Langley got to make a living too. Let's not get mad at them. They got to eat too. They're just trying to eat, man. Don't get mad at the guys in the CIA. They got families to feed, for God's sake. They got families to kill, apparently. At any rate, so let's talk. Well, make sure that this is everything's on. Okay. I think everything's working. I see people there showing up. I'm going to assume that this is happening. So what happened here? A couple of things. It's been a busy day, and let's put them all together, a busy week. So on Sunday, apparently Yemen fired some missiles at Haifa, and apparently they fired a missile. This appears to be some kind of a new um, technology. My understanding and researching and trying to find out as much as I can. You've heard of a lot of these missiles now that do like violent turns in their terminal phase. That they're very hard to track. That they do a lot of different things that make it hard to shoot down. Certainly, the Iranians have said this. And they've said that when their Operation True Promise or whatever it was, one or two, whatever it was, that when they struck Israel, they were gathering data about how to defeat Israel's air defense, Israel, and by Israel, I mean the U.S. empire, but how to defeat the U.S. Air defense systems. They were gathering data. Apparently, that was part of sending lots and lots of drones. Some of the drones apparently were data collection drones transmitting data. So they come in, they find out um, when does Israel turn on various air defense systems? Like what frequencies are they aimed? Where are they? Where are they positioned? Because one of the things that will happen with air defense is you find where they are, and you find blind spots and alleys that missiles can travel. Such as, if you've ever, you may have noticed this. I have a spot around the corner from me when I turn in the neighborhood, and you hit this one spot, and I always lose people. And I know a guy that used to do this stuff for cell phone companies, where he would set up the towers where one tower dies and the other one loses, and the other one picks it up, and that kind of stuff. Well, it's the same with air defense systems. They can check out apparently the radar and find alleyways and find blind spots and things like that. Well, apparently Iran, being a very, very technologically advanced country, they did a lot of data collection on Israel's air defense systems. Now, I would suspect, certainly, that they're at minimal, that they're sharing information technology, that they're sharing data, they're sharing intelligence. They could be working with Yemen on targeting. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, let's face it. I don't care what you say. The United States provides all of that stuff for Ukraine. The United States provides all that stuff for Israel. It's like the U.S. saying, yes, we're providing everything for Ukraine, and Iran, like those drones or whatever that ended up Shahed drones. You can't provide drones for Russia. You can't provide shells or anything for Russia. Yeah, really. Well, people aren't listening to that crap. And Iran has said, we support Yemen. They're a partner, they're an ally, and we'll continue to support them. We don't give a crap what you say. You think you can do it, and you can tell us that we can't. Bottom line, I would imagine, now let's not underestimate Yemen. The more we look into it, the more we find out that Yemen, they do in fact have engineers and high-tech people, that some of them certainly have been trained in Russia and China, and no question Iran, right? So in this day and age, As the Russians just demonstrated, you can use chips from refrigerators. Remember that whole thing? Russians are running out of chips and they're using them for refrigerator chips. So hey, if refrigerator chips will work on missiles, then great. But all jokes aside, so bottom line, let's get to the bottom line here. What has been demonstrated is that it is not the most difficult task in the world to penetrate the American air defense system. Remember, we've got integrated networked air defense systems, right? When you come out here, there's supposed to be various types of air defense systems that catch it further out and shoot it further out and closer and closer and closer. Then when you set up an expensive air defense system such as the THAAD, Terminal High Altitude Air Defense, a system that has like 100 people, I think it takes to run it, costs $2 billion. You set that up. Now you're going to have air defense, short range air defense around that to protect that, etc. So your air defense systems are layered, they're networked, they're supposed to work together. And as the missile's coming in, they're supposed to pick it up way before it comes in. And then all of these various network systems are supposed to work together to decide who shoots what, and it's supposed to go down. But it didn't. It got through. One missile. And apparently the Yemenis didn't fire like a lot of these missiles. They fired one. I think to some extent, firing one missile that comes in and hits its target, and might I add, it hit a dirt field, a clump of trees near Ben Gurion. It didn't actually hit the terminal. And I believe that with the level of technology that they have demonstrated, it's clear they could have hit the terminal if they wanted to. This was a demonstration. It was showing, look, dudes, don't really push us too far and don't piss us off. If we choose, we can take out Ben Gurion Airport. And the strength, to some extent, is not hitting Ben Gurion Airport. It's letting them know that you can. It's letting them know if this goes bad, you guys want a war with Iran, we can hit all this stuff. There's nothing you can do to stop it. So if you get your war with Iran that you want, you're going to lose Ben Gurion Airport. That's gone. Day one, first few minutes, you can count that out. That's gone. It's going to be turned to rubble. And of course, they only got a handful of power plants in Israel. They're gone. Be careful what you pray for. You might just get it. And they're asking for something that in reality, the message is continually being sent to them. You don't want this. You think you want it, but you don't really want it. So where does that take me? And then how does that go? How do we go to NATO? Well, here's the bottom line. You're dealing with Yemen. You're at the lowest level. Now, Yemen has said, I read something last week where Yemen had said, our technology is I'm paraphrasing, is doing good, doing great. And we have new things coming. We got more coming. We got great surprises coming for Israel. So, excuse me, don't, underestimate us, but basically we will demonstrate it. So they basically said, we got surprises coming. You'll know when they come, we'll demonstrate it. I think part of it is this missile. They were prepping the missile. They were ready to fire this missile. And they just said, hey, we got a surprise coming. Well, guess what? There was a bow on that missile. It was a surprise. And the surprise was we can get through if we want to. Now, what has happened since then? Donald Trump made an announcement today, and it's all over the place, where he said, look, we made a deal with Yemen. And the deal was, and he said they capitulated. And so we're not going to bomb them anymore, and they're not going to shoot at us in the Red Sea. Well, I suspect we're getting the hell out of the Red Sea. But here's the bottom line. I think the message is also clear for Trump. And that is, we can hit you guys, we can hit your bases, we can do what we want. If you drag this thing out too far, it's not going to be good for us, and it's not going to be good for you. We don't want this thing. We don't want this war on our turf. But if we got to fight on our turf, we're going to make your life a living hell. And we can do it. That's the key. We can do it, and you can't stop us. I watched Muhammad Ali fight years ago when I was very young. And I remember watching Ali fight this guy with 5 rounds, and he's standing there and he'd just go pop. His left jab would just come out, pop, the whole 5 rounds. And it's obvious what you were watching. He could knock this guy out anytime he wanted. And afterwards he says, well, I figured the people needed at least 5 rounds to, get their money's worth. And it wouldn't be fair to just knock him out in the first round. But he's fighting this guy, and this guy didn't even flinch. He's like this, pop, taking his hit, pop. pop. He knew I can't block it. I can't work it. Put his hands up, pop. It comes in this nuke. The speed of Ali was so fast, there was nothing he could do. Ali could hit him anytime he wanted, which meant he could knock him out anytime he wanted. The man was naked. Okay. Israelis naked and defenseless against Iran. Again, I'll say this. Maybe I'm wrong. Within minutes, I could be proven wrong. They're like, they're sending more. I've just read something. They're sending more B-52s to Diego Garcia, whatever the hell. I don't know. But here's what I'm saying. You can send all the B-52s and B-1Bs and all that kind of crap you want to. If you punch Iran, they're going to sting your ass like a hornet, and you know it. And I think this is... Now, some may say, well, he just wants to stop fighting them so he can go after Iran. Well, that doesn't make any sense, because if you fight Iran, that not only is not only are the Houthis in the fight, they ain't missing next time. If you go ahead and expand this thing and go to war with Iran, the next missile's not hitting a clump of trees outside of Ben Gurion Airport. The next missile's hitting Ben Gurion Airport by the dozens. And Iran, you don't know what kind of missiles that they have. I would suspect that Yemen has some much more deadly anti-shipping missiles than you've seen. So you take it to Iran. Oh, we're going to stop this so we can go after Iran. You're going to see some nasty shipping missiles that are going to hit you, and you're going to have problems. And I suspect now that Trump, I'm not saying a de-escalation, but he's going to talk with the Iranians, and ultimately, I don't think he pulls the trigger. I don't think he says, let's attack Iran. Trump don't want to lose a war like that, and he'll lose it. And if not lose it, he'll get the hell smacked out of him. He doesn't want to take that kind of a bloody nose. Trump is not going to stick his chin out so you can punch it. And that's what it would be going against Iran. Now, let's take this to NATO. What the hell kind of air defense systems does NATO use? We can tell you for sure that the U.S. air bases are going to be what? I understand these THAAD systems, the Terminal High Altitude Air Defense System, that there's only 7 of them in the world, that they totally got 7 of them. I'm sure they have them, they have them defending, major U.S. bases. They got the major U.S. base in Romania. That's the biggest one of the biggest ones in the world. You've got Ramstein Air Force Base. I'm sure they're defending some of them. Major U.S. bases, of course, are going to be defended by THAAD and Patriot and what have you, which means in the first few, look, if Yemen can take out, can defeat the THAAD, the Russians will blow that damn thing up in about 5 seconds. Your THAAD is going to have a Russian all over it. You have no defense. First of all, the Oreshnik fires 6 pods of 6 missiles. So they're going to fire an Oreshnik. It's going to have 36 missiles. Everything with like in a square mile is going to be turned into vaporized. Absolutely vaporized. So however many THAAD systems you have in Europe, you go to war with Russia, you ain't going to have 0. As they said about, the Russians said about the Patriot system, when they blew the first one up that went into, and it was video, the one that went into Kiev. They said, can it defend Kiev? The Russians said it can't even defend itself. All we need to know is where it is. Turn it on so we can see the radar. Give us the location of it, and it's done. A couple of hypersonic missiles, couple of Kinjals come in. See ya. It's over. So my point is that the situation is pretty clear by now, and that is basically NATO is naked. The best systems that the Ukrainians use were old S-300 Russian systems. That was their best air defense systems. So the best air defense systems that the NATO has is old S-300s that seem to be better than any damn thing they got. Seems to be very good. And I would imagine that all of their air defense systems, since none of them can really protect themselves from the Kinjals, they would be disposed of early. What else does that mean? That means that the ships that have basically, your ships have seaborne versions. As an example, Russian ships, a lot of the Russian ships on them. They have like a seaborne version of the S-300 defending itself, right? It's it's an S-300 basically kind of mounted and built into a ship. And of course, that's what countries do. They take their air defense system and they, mount it in a ship. Russians have an S-350 that is basically an S-300 that has AI. You know what I mean? It doesn't need a person to target it. So they put this on ships too. So the S-350 is scanning. When it picks up missiles, planes, or whatever, it fires on its own. You don't have to do the targeting and all of that stuff. It's like an AI version. And I'm sure that US ships have these types of things. But what we're seeing now is, and it's their own fault, getting this war going in with Israel, pushing this war in Israel, then harassing Iran, throwing stuff at Iran, so Iran fights back, gives the Iranians the opportunity to try out Israel's air defense system, gives the Iranians the opportunity. And the Russians are working with the Iranians. Why? How do we know that? Because the Russians are helping the Iranians to build and fortify their electronic warfare and their air defense, electronic warfare being an integral part of air defense, but your electronic warfare slash integrated networked air defense system, layered networked air defense system. So since they are doing that, that only leads me to believe that when these strikes are happening, might be Russians on the ground. There may be Russians involved. I'm not saying they're firing them, but I'm saying Russians involved in data collection because it also benefits Russia. So every time something is fired from Iran or Yemen or whatever at these American air defense systems, the Russians, the Iranians, no doubt the Chinese, they are collecting data on Western air defense systems. But and no doubt, I would imagine with the firing at Russia, the West is collecting data on Russian air defense systems. But what we see is Russia's air defense systems seem to just be a lot better. And based on what we're seeing in um, uh, 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 Israel, it ain't hard. It's not hard. I mean, look, the Ukrainians slash Brits slash Americans are having to fire, salvos and lots of, 20 missiles at a time and lots of drones and stuff like that. They really got to go all out to get a hit in on Russia, and they get some hits in. Yemen's not supposed to be successful against your air defense networked air defense system. Yemen is not supposed to be successful, but they are. And so there's a lot of data collection going on. And now, so bottom line is NATO is in a position, even as Starmer and Macron and Merritz and all these people talk about preparing for a war with Russia. They've got numerous problems. A, they don't have the money. B, they don't have the industrial capacity to either build the things that they would need for a war with Russia, or if they went to war with Russia, to continue to build the things they would need to support a long-term war with Russia, especially since a lot of their military industrial complex would be obliterated on day one, if not almost pretty much all of it. But they don't have any. They don't really have any industry. They don't have an industry. They don't have a motivated population. The people don't want to fight Russia. They don't have the current things that they need. They're starting from scratch. Okay, you got Russia, who has a military industrial system, who has an effective air defense systems and the things they need as an effective air defense system. They're continually to build these air defense systems and these other things. They have superior technology in hypersonic missiles, which you don't have hypersonic missiles in the West yet. So they have technological and industrial advantages, and they ain't starting from scratch. That's the other part. We're going to build up to fight Russia. Okay, if you say right now, I'm going to start building my army to fight Russia, Air Force, Navy, all of that, then at that point, Russia says, oh, crap, well, we better build up. But they're starting from an effective force. So they're going to start here. And if you're going to fight them, they're going to build it here, which you can't even see my hand. It's way up there. Okay. You're starting on the floor and you don't have the things necessary to even get off the floor. And you don't even have the political support or the patriotic support in your country because the people there really don't want the war. They're trying to eat and they can't eat. You got it. So I don't see NATO being in a position to fight, get together to fight Russia. And might I add, a significant portion of your, what do we call in NATO? A war machine. Claim they call it to be an alliance, but it don't seem to be so allied. A significant portion of your alliance ain't in on the game. They're saying no, 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 we don't want to do that. You think Greece and Turkey and Italy, Slovakia, what's the other one? Hungary. Do you think they're in? They're all NATO members. Do you think they're going to be like, all right, let's go? How about Czechoslovakia? You think they're going to be all right? War with Russia, we're in. So a NATO war with Russia without half of NATO in it. Half of NATO would be like, oh no, we don't do that crap. You're out of your mind. No. And you got to cheat Romania to get them in because Romanian people really don't want it to happen. And Romania is like the most important country as far as getting to the Russian border. Might I add, you got to go to the Russian border to fight Russia because they ain't coming to you because they don't really want to fight you. You got to go to the Russian border to fight Russia, and they can then sit in their airspace and bomb the hell out of you, missile the hell out of you. And did I mention that you don't have an air defense? See, that's the part of it that we get down at the end, that we learn from this conflict, that you don't have a competent air defense. And you don't have a competent air defense for regular old missiles. You don't have a competent air defense for, not just hypersonic missiles. Now, of course, the Houthis claim this is a hypersonic missile. Remember, that's questionable. We talked to Andrei Martyanov, and he says, a lot of missiles, if you just measure the speed, a lot of ballistic missiles reach hypersonic speeds in the terminal phase. So they're up, and then as they're coming down, they get faster and faster and faster, and they reach a hypersonic speed. Technically, they're hypersonic missiles, right? But unlike some of these others, for instance, the Russian hypersonic missiles they have that are powered through the entire, they don't like get powered and then they run out of ammo and then they come down. I mean, they run out of fuel and they come get you. These things are powered through the whole phase and they do all kind of violent and crazy stuff, and they have suppressed trajectories. And there's a lot of reasons why these things are pretty much at this point impossible to shoot down. And the Russians, since you're talking all kind of crazy stuff, are packing those things up and building them up, and they're planning for an attack by you, but you can't really do it. But after all of this, and same with the Ukrainian, the Chinese, something came out the other day that America's putting some Typhoon missile system on some island near the Philippines. Dude, if you can't stop missiles whistling in from the Houthis, trust me when I tell you this, if you start a war with China, those Typhoon systems ain't going to be around for long. Seconds. I wouldn't want to be the people manning them because you are going to die really, really fast. I wouldn't be I would imagine that North Korea being an ally of Russia and starting to show up with a lot of technological military equipment, that all that stuff right across the creek from North Korea in Japan, that a whole lot of that stuff's going to have very serious troubles in a hurry if a war starts. So my point of all of this is this: Yemen's missile success against U.S. and Western air defense systems demonstrates that U.S. and Western air defense systems are not competent against Yemen's not even a near peer ally, against one of the poorest countries in the world and clearly the poorest country in the Middle East. That demonstrates something else, that the lopsided power dynamic that the U.S. empire has been accustomed to is over. Think about it. What would happen if the Brits, these colonial powers had said, okay, we're coming to take over America, and they came in with their guns, right? And they're like, ha, 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 we got muskets and all you got is bows and arrows. and the Indians had pulled out a bunch of, the Native Americans had pulled out AK-47s and lit them up, think we'd have a different history, wouldn't we? We would have it, and they came out with, M50s, 50 cals, butterfly triggers, and just lit up the British, lit up their ships. We'd have a different history. Why? Because the so-called suppressed class, the people that you're coming to take their stuff, would outgun you. Even if they were even in their gun, you couldn't take it, right? So my point being is, what we're seeing now is an instance where, imagine if the North Koreans back then had equal technology with the U.S. I mean, we lost anyway. And at that point, they didn't have a lot of technology. It was mostly ground troops, but they did have some technology from Russia and China and some assistance, right? But my point being, now we're in a situation where a country as poor as Yemen has technology that can threaten the U.S. empire. So I wouldn't call it great power. I would call it one of the most powerful regional militaries in the world. It's a regional power. Iran's a regional power, but it's important to understand that as a regional power, if you have to fight them in their region, the odds are they're going to beat you, right? As a regional power, Iran couldn't send troops or a navy or submarines over to fight us here. Or like, let's say that we were going to fight them in Greenland. I don't know, whatever the hell, right? We could send troops there and stuff there to fight them. They don't have the wherewithal to send an expeditionary force elsewhere to fight us. But as a regional power, if you fight that dog at home, that dog's going to bite the hell out of you, right? He's backed up in his backyard. So if you fight them at home, they got lots of missiles whistling out of the mountains. They have but what would probably be an advanced air defense system that the Russians are putting together, which means it's superior to ours. So if you fight Iran, what does that mean? Their air defense system and their electronic warfare system is in all likelihood superior to yours. Think about this. This is one of the reasons I believe Trump's not attacking Iran. Air defense system, right? Electronic warfare system. In this fight, who do you give the edge to? Iran. Missiles in both number and potency. Who do you give the missiles to? The edge to? Iran, right? Capacity to maintain a long-term war. Who do you give the edge to? Iran, right? I don't know the term, but the exact word to use in this particular instance, but the ability to hide, right? In a war, can I hide? Can I stay hidden? Can I make it hard for you to find out where I am? Well, let's see. The U.S. has bases that you can go on Google Earth right now and look at every damn one of them on Google Earth. Meanwhile, Iran's dug into the mountains like a Tennessee tick, right? Like a Rocky Mountain tick, right? They're dug in, and you don't even know where. You can't find the missile bases and missile batteries in the mountains of Yemen. You think you're going to find them in the mountains of Iran? So we say electronic warfare system, integrated air defense system, which is going to be S-300s. Iran says they have S-400s. If they do, you better watch your ass. You don't want to get anywhere near those. But here's the bottom line. Air defense, electronic warfare, U.S., Iran. Numbers of troops. Ground troops. U.S., Iran. The clandestine and hidden nature of their missile batteries. U.S., Iran. U.S., everybody knows where their stuff is. Iran, you don't know where the hell it is, right? Number of missiles, right? The depth of their ability to continue to maintain the attacks. U.S. versus Iran. If you start looking at this from the perspective, it's like watching a football team, American football team, and before the game, they'll say, all right, let's see, quarterback, this team versus this team. I'll give this team the edge. Running back, I'll give this team the edge, right? Receivers, I'll give this team the edge. You go through the various elements and okay, let's go to defense, right? Let's give this team the edge on the offensive line, this team the edge on the defense. Oh no, offensive versus defensive line, they're even, right? So you can kind of go through and say, I'm going to give this group the edge versus that group the edge. If you do that, in the region, first of all, home field advantage, massive edge to Iran. Massive edge to home field advantage. That's what allows them to fire from protection out of their space. Might I add also, there's another home field advantage that they have. They have various allies around the region, and who knows what Yemen actually has. Who knows what some of these other local militia units in Iraq and different places. Who knows how heavily they're armed and what they're going to be able to hit, right? You don't know what they have. So they got bases hidden, electronic warfare, integrated air defense system, which is S-300, S-400. It's going to be better than yours. If you fight them, you're at a disadvantage in very many. What is your big advantage? U.S. If they fight, what area can we say that the U.S. has an advantage? Do they have more space-based intelligence? Yeah, but we already know the Russians are working with Iran, so I think that advantage is going to be, even to some extent. So when you look at that, fighting Iran in the Iranian region, you have to say, I would probably give Iran the advantage, which means Iran's probably going to win that. What are you going to do? Use nuclear weapons? That's your only option. What does that do then? The fallout goes all okay, you blow something up, there's a big cloud of nuclear stuff, and the fallout goes all over the Middle East, or God only knows where it goes. You don't know where it can land on Israel, it can land on Saudi Arabia, it can land all over the Gulf, it can pretty much end all of the options for using for sending oil and things like that, and gas from the region. You don't know. So you can't really, that's not really an option. And you're going to attack somebody with a nuclear weapon. Why? Because we can't allow them to get a nuclear weapon. What sense does that make? And you're going to be really a pariah worldwide if you ain't already. You're going to be more so. So all of the options go to Iran. Now, take that and move it to Europe. Take that and move it to Europe. Now you're fighting Russia, who is technologically right now one of the most, probably maybe the most technologically advanced military in the world. So now you're going to go to Russia and fight them, and which means your bases now are all sitting ducks. And Russia has the means to wipe out all your bases on day one. What are you going to do? Well, we got to bring in lots of troops and all of this kind of stuff. How are you going to bring it in? Well, we're going to ship it in. So you're going to bring it into ports, which Russia's going to obliterate all of your major ports the first day with missiles and arrest it. And what, they don't even have to go nuclear. They can say, we'll make it so you can't. You think they don't have all those ports targeted? You don't think they have all you don't think they got all those bases targeted? And not just the ports and bases, the particular parts of the ports and bases that you'll need. Your transportation hubs that you'll need to transport stuff, you got to come to their border to fight them. And you don't have an adequate air defense system. My whole point is this. All of these things would be targeted as a normal part of war. Fair enough. But you don't have an adequate air defense system. So NATO, and I don't even have to, but I'll add this. I don't know if you've been paying attention, and this is important. I will give this to you. Pakistan. And this is critical. Watch this. Now, this is crap, the way they put it, but we'll look at it. Okay. Hold on a second. I'm having trouble with this. But the bottom line is, what are we saying here? There we go. So hopefully this will work. Ah, yes, it works. There we go. It took a little bit of time. Excuse me. I set up a new machine and a new browser, and it's asking for all of these permissions and all this kind of crap. Okay, what do we got? Now, this is crap. Pakistan sent its arms to Ukraine for quick money, and now its arsenals are empty. The shortage of cells for Pakistan's M109 howitzers and rockets for its BM-21 systems was discussed at the special court. Okay, what are we looking at here, and what do we know? So there's tensions between Pakistan and India. And now we find out that Pakistan's out of, they don't have a lot of stuff because it went to Ukraine. Now, what you may find interesting is this. Pakistan, let's face it, the U.S. and MI6 overthrew the government of Imran Khan and put in a puppet. This guy, literally the guy that's running it, was living in the suburbs of London and the exile pretty much. They overthrew the government, jailed Imran Khan, who wasn't exactly allied with Russia, but he was neutral, and they stuck in a puppet. Well, now we know why. Pakistan didn't send its arms to Ukraine for money. They did it because their government was overthrown and because the US and in the UK took control of their government and said, okay, all your stuff is going to Ukraine. I wonder how many other countries they did this to with. But it doesn't matter right now. So what happened? Pakistan's naked. They're having a confrontation with India. And their confrontation sounds like I tend to think that terrorist attack was an MI6/CIA operation, because as soon as it happened, the Pakistan defense minister came out and said, "What? We've been doing the dirty work for the West for many years, and it's always been bad for us, right?" So he came out and said this was the dirty work for the West. But not only was it the dirty work for the West, they forgot something. And what they forgot is the West disarmed them, sent all their stuff to Ukraine. And now Pakistan is naked and afraid, right? In a world they never made, as they say, right? They got nothing. Well, here's the problem with the NATO. You don't have a decent air defense system. The Russians are hip to everything you're doing. They're freaking armed to the teeth. And did I mention, just like Pakistan? Look, what is the U.S. The British Navy has like 8 ships or something. They've had to mothball their ships because they don't have people to put on them, and what little they have, they don't really have much gear for it. They were like advertising for for captains and admirals to run their ships. They got nothing. And on top of all the issues that NATO has, it's naked in so many ways. NATO is broke. They got nothing. They're out of money. They're crushed to everything from the COVID lockdowns to these people just profligate spenders, shall we say. They throw money away and steal most of it, to the fact that it's a neoliberal economy, which absolutely does not work because it's nothing but a self-serving scam for the rich and the powerful. So you don't have money. You've been demilitarized by sending all your stuff to Ukraine to be blown to hell. So you don't really have any weapons to fight with. Germany, a while back, they did 2 things I'll tell you about Germany. They sent a tank brigade to the Sawiki Gap in case Russia comes through, but they won't have any tanks until 2027 at the earliest, and they're not 100% sure. So there's a tank brigade there with no tanks. Furthermore, there was, and you might have seen this on some of my other shows, where literally what they did was they they had a NATO exercise, and the German soldiers didn't have guns, so they had to use broomsticks painted black. You can search it yourself. Broomsticks. That's what they're fighting with, right? So they got nothing. It's all gone to Ukraine and blown up. So they don't have weapons. They don't have money. The people are pissed, so that really they got to cheat the people so they even stay in power. So they don't have any buy-in by the people. They don't have their energy. That's done. They don't have that. Their industry's closing down. And as I said, even if they got in a war, you have to be able to protect yourself from Russian missiles. They can't do it. So to me, with all of the other things individually, any one of them would be disastrous, would be terrible. Collectively, it's calamitous from the perspective of a military confrontation with a superpower such as Russia. And they got a bunch of idiots running that they haven't figured that out. They're like, we must prepare for a fight with Russia. You ain't even close. You're not even close to being able to put together a plan to prepare, much less to prepare. You can't put together a plan to prepare. You got nothing. You got to start building your military stuff from scratch. And might I add, the stuff that you had that went to Ukraine didn't work against the Russians. And the Russians know it all, how it works anyway. They captured a bunch of them. They took them to Russia and they took them apart piece by piece. So they don't work. And whatever did work, the Russians know how to make it not work. And every weakness that it has, the Russians know. And now, the final nail in the coffin, shall we say, is giving the countries that you've determined are adversaries the opportunity to get information, data about your air defense systems, what little you have, and how to defeat them. And now they've figured out this is how easy it is to defeat them, and they can defeat them at will. So if that's the way Israel's looking, Israel's kind of like a metaphor for NATO. They're done, finished. They got nothing. So that's all I wanted to say. Let me take a look here. Okay. Are there? I don't see any. If there were, nope, I don't see any super chats apparently. So that's okay. Thanks a lot, everybody. Certainly appreciate everybody taking the time out to check this out. Sorry about the little issue I had at the beginning. That was really kind of weird. Where I started a stream and it just disappeared on me. Share this on all your social media platforms. Follow me on Rockfin. Follow me on Rumble. Follow me on Telegram if you can afford it. Buy me a coffee. You see that going by. Certainly Patreon.com. Oh crap, my Patreon thing is gone. Patreon.com and all the other ways, PayPal, you name it. Thanks a lot. And now you'll see going across. I even got a P.O. box if you want to send whatever you want to send there. I'm out.